What would I do without your smart mouth? Drawing me in, you kicking me out. You got my head spinning, no kidding. I can't pin you down. What's going on in that beautiful mind? I'm on your magical mystery ride, and I'm so dizzy, don't know what hit me, but I'll be alright. My head's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind, 'cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning, 'cause I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. Oh, how many times do I have to tell you? Even when you're crying, you're beautiful too. The world is beating you down. I'm around through every mood.
Oh, really?
You're my downfall, you're my muse, my worst distraction, my rhythm and blues.
Tuesday.
I can't stop singing, this ringing in my head for you. My head's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind, 'cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I'll give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning, 'cause I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. Oh, give me all of you. Cards on the table, we're both showing hearts, risking it all though it's hard, 'cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your
wish I
perfect
had a
imperfections. Give your all to me,
I can't believe we don't
give
own a ball.
my all to you.
I have a t-shirt.
You're
but-
my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning, 'cause I give you all of me,
You would think.
and you give me all of you. I give you all of me,
Oh well.
and you give me all of you. Oh,
All means all.
All means all.
All means all.
सबै भनेको सम्पूर्ण.
All means all.
All means all.
All means all.
ठुलो मतलब ठुलो.
All means all.
All means all. All means all.
All means all.
All means all.
Hey, good morning and welcome to West Church Online. We are so grateful that you are worshiping with us this morning. We are grateful that you have merged into our 9 a.m. live stream, and we are getting used to it as well. It's a little crazy on Sunday mornings trying to get, unloaded at the high school and then here, but we love being live with you, and we are trying to gear this service to be very specific to you and not trying to do like the same thing here that we do at the high school. So this morning we are going to talk about West's second core value. If you are new to West, we would love to know that you're worshiping with us. Type your name in the chat room. Yes, I did have my mic on. Isn't that lovely? Like you get to see the behind the scenes. Thank you for actually telling us that, because I would have not known. And heaven forbid, like I've gone to the bathroom or something right before worship. But always, we appreciate you telling us that stuff. But if you're newer to the West community, we would love to know that you're worshiping with us this morning. You can text the word welcome to the number that you see on your screen, 704-343-8955. 704-343-8955. Text the word welcome. Let us know that you're worshiping with us this morning. Like I said, we're going to talk about our second core value. And so you at home, one of the things that we like to do is make the messages relevant and make them stick in your mind. So we are going to talk about our core value, all means all. Our first core value is that we follow the Jesus model. And our second core value is that all means all. That regardless of skin color or socioeconomic status or gender identity or sexual orientation, all people are welcome. And in fact, not only are all people welcome, all people are allowed opportunities to serve on our ministry teams. And we're going to dig into that and what that means a little deeper later in the service, because lots of churches say that all are welcome. But then once you get in the doors, you find out that not all means all, that you have to be a certain way to be able to go to deeper levels of leadership and stuff. And here at West, we do believe that God loves all people the same, and that we are all sinners, and we are all working on that. And so we're going to talk today about what sin means. So I need you to do me a quick favor. In just a minute, we're going to play a video about some really famous museums. And so while that video is playing of the museums, I want you to go find a pair of socks. I just want you to get something that you can throw, not at your computer screen or your phone screen, or if you're driving down the road right now listening, we want you to just pay attention. If you're listening to us on the podcast, you can just pretend you're going to throw something if you're busy doing something else. But if you're watching live stream right now, we want you to go grab a pair of socks, and we have an illustration that we're going to use a little later when we teach the word sin and what that actually means. So our mission statement is real people doing real life, sharing God's love in real ways. We recognize that we are all a part of this journey together, that none of us have arrived or are more special or anointed than anyone else. We're not bigger or better than anyone else. We're all just learning together. And that's how Jesus taught people, and that's how he loved people. So that's why our second core value after following the Jesus model is all means all. So there's a quote we're going to show you in a little while, but it talks about church in relation to a club or a museum. And so this morning we are going to talk about what a hospital, a museum, a club or a country club, and a church all have in common. And to get started with that, I wanted to show you some funky pictures of things that have been uncovered in an ER. So I want you to look on your screen and see, what do you think this item is lodged up inside of the cavity of this individual? It is actually a bullet. This individual swallowed a bullet to take in to an institution where they were taken to prison, and they swallowed a bullet with the intention of using it later. And they ultimately ended up telling someone that they had swallowed the bullet. They ended up having to have surgery to have it removed. But when they had the surgery, they had to call in the bomb squad because they were worried that the bullet would detonate when they did the surgery. So that's one of the interesting things that's been found in a hospital operating room. Another interesting thing that was found in a hospital ER was someone came in and they had a cell phone lodged up in their abdominal cavity. They were going to see someone in prison and they wanted to help them stay connected. And so when you check into a prison, you can't take your cell phone and things in there. So they swallowed, or actually they didn't swallow, they put their phone up in other ways. I'll let you figure that out. And then the third thing that was interesting that was found in a hospital ER is a young woman came in despondent. Her her boyfriend had proposed to her, her now fiance, and had done so with a milkshake. And instead of drinking the milkshake with a straw, much to his dismay, she took a huge gulp of the milkshake, swallowed the diamond, and it was lodged in her stomach. So she had to go to the hospital to get the ring removed. We go to the hospital when we need care, right? Like all the people that I just showed you, the person that swallowed the bullet, the person that inserted the cell phone, and the person that swallowed the ring, they had to receive medical care. We go to the hospital when we're sick. So these are just some fun pictures. Now, the other thing I want us to compare to a hospital is a museum. So what do you encounter when you go to a museum? On your screen right now, you see the picture of the Mona Lisa. Now, if you go to downtown Mooresville, if you live here in the local area, you can go downtown and see the Mona Lisa painted on the side of a big brick building. It's larger than life, and probably you've seen replicas of the Mona Lisa lots of different places. But if you've actually been to the museum where the Mona Lisa is, lots of people have shared with me that they were underwhelmed after they saw it. Because look, you see the people standing in front of it. For me, I've never been to the museum where the Mona Lisa is held, so I just assumed it was this huge, big portrait. But Josh on staff with us, he has gone and he's like, look, it's really, really small. So he found a picture for me and it shows it relative to people. Like it's not this big gargantuan thing. It's actually something very small, but it is a famous artifact and it is stored there. You can't touch it. You can't interact with it. It is just stored there. So I wanted to show you something else that's stored in a museum. See in our chat room, we have at least 3 ordained United Methodist pastors. And so I would love to know if y'all know what this is. It's located in London. This is a lock of John Wesley's hair. In the museum, the Wesley Heritage Museum in London, there is a lock of his hair. Now, I would love to think that my impact through preaching and teaching has been such that you're going to want to keep a lock of my hair stored away after I'm no longer your pastor, but I'm figuring probably not. Like, I'm pretty sure that none of you want a piece of my hair. But Wesley was phenomenal, and I mean, clearly, he started this movement that became a global denomination, and I personally believe one of the most beautiful and powerful denominations because of our stance on all means all, and God loves all people, and we err on grace. And so that's why West is so proud to be a part of the United Methodist Church. But yeah, in the Wesley Museum in London, there is a lock of his hair. There are just some crazy museums across our globe, crazy as in funny and unique. So while you go get a pair of socks or something that you can throw, something soft, I want you to take a look or at least listen to what these weird and crazy museums are in our culture today.
Number 25, a barbed wire hat. These are the kinds of things they have at the Museum of Barbed Wire in Kansas. Number 24, ugly paintings. The Museum of Bad Art in Massachusetts displays some of the least talented artists in the world. Number 23, toilets from around the world. The Sulabh International Toilet Museum in New Delhi preserves anything and everything related to toilets. Number 22, wreaths made from hair. The Lila's Hair Museum displays wreaths made from hair of all colors and types. Number 21, the world's largest Pez dispenser. Displayed at the Burlingame Museum, there's a Pez dispenser to end all Pez dispensers. It's 7 feet tall, 10 inches wide, and has the capacity to hold 6,000 Pez candies. Number 20, a petrified banana. From big bananas to small bananas to petrified bananas, the Banana Club Museum has it all. Number 19, artifacts of ordinary life. Found in Arizona and claiming to be the world's smallest museum, this place displays artifacts of ordinary life dedicated to ordinary people. Number 18, replicas and interactive displays of asylums. These replicas are preserved at the Glore Psychiatric Museum in Montana. Number 17, the bubble suit. Located at the Smithsonian Museum, this suit was meant to protect a 12-year-old boy after a bone marrow transplant. It's been shown in movies with stars such as John Travolta. Number 16, the mechanized monk. This 16th century, 15-inch tall mechanized monk from Spain is displayed at the Smithsonian Museum. Number 15, the bun gauge. Also at the Smithsonian, you'll find the bun gauge. McDonald's was the restaurant to use this gauge, which measures the height and width of the bun to ensure a perfect meat-to-bun combination. Number 14, the head press. At the Amsterdam Museum of Torture Instruments is the head press. It's a piece of machinery that was used in medieval times for execution. Number 13, the plaster body cast. At the Mutter Museum is the plaster body cast used in 1874 during the autopsy of Chang and Ang Bunker, a set of identical twins. Number 12, the soap lady. Also at the Mutter Museum is Soap Woman. She's been at the museum since the 19th century when her body was burned and combined with chemicals to turn her into soap. Number 11, the 30-foot tapeworm. Yes, you can get a glimpse of a tapeworm at a museum. This display can be found in Tokyo, Japan at the Museum of Parasitology. This tapeworm was pulled from a woman's stomach. Number 10, a ball of string. If you've always wanted to see a gigantic ball of string, now's your chance. This 1,000-pound ball is proudly on display at the Patty House Museum in Missouri. Number 9, spam. No, not what you get in your email box every day, rather the spam that you eat. At the Spam Museum, there's nothing left to the imagination. Number 8, trash. The Trash Museum, located in Connecticut, features an assortment of trash. One man's trash is another's treasure. Number 7, the dog astronaut suit. This is the kinds of things that they have on display at the Museum of Jurassic Technology. Number 6, Cher Ami. This carrier pigeon flew 12 missions during World War I and is now posthumously displayed at the Smithsonian. Number 5, Route 66. There's an actual 50-foot concrete slab from Route 66 on display in Washington, D.C. Number 4, famous cockroaches. Or at least cockroaches dressed up as famous people are on display at this museum in Plano, Texas. Number 3, mustard. In Wisconsin, there's actually an entire museum dedicated to it. Number 2, really old dog collars. From every era and every corner of the globe, at this museum in Leeds Castle, you'll find a whole bunch of dog collars. And number 1, tap water. In the Beijing Tap Water Museum, you'll find all sorts of artifacts related to drinking or collecting tap water.
So I would love to know, as we listen to the closing song, perhaps, what weird museum you would be most interested in going to see. So I want us to think about museums, and when you go to look at things, right? They're stored and they're preserved. You don't go there to receive something interactive. But the opposite of a museum is a hospital. So I picked just a picture of a hospital in Texas, a nice United Methodist hospital. And because I didn't want to like show favoritism, we have lots of great hospitals in our area, and we have lots of people around that work at these hospitals that are affiliated with West. So I thought I'd go really neutral. But when you go to a hospital, probably each of us that are worshiping and listening to this message, we've been to the hospital either to see someone or to receive care. Even when you go into a hospital to have a baby, you are going in to receive care. People that go to the hospital, they're wounded. Unless you're going to see someone, they are wounded and are in need of something. That's actually why we have as our second core value, all means all. Because we see that a hospital has some similarities to a church. A church is much like a hospital because you see, we all come to this place, and whether it's a digital place or an in-person place, it's a community. It's not a building. We come to this community and we are looking for something. We need something. We need healing. We need hope. We need to be able to find peace when we are in the middle of life's uncertainties and trying to overcome the hurdles that face us. And we base our core value, all means all, on some words that Jesus shared with those who were following him about hospitals and about the sick. So I want you to hear this passage of Scripture this morning. It is taken from the book of Mark. And this is why we have the core value that all means all. It's Mark chapter 2. Jesus went again to walk alongside the lake. Again, a crowd came to him, and he taught them. Strolling along, he saw Levi, and he was working, collecting taxes. And Jesus said, "Come along with me." And so Levi came. And later, his disciples and he were at a home, and they were having supper with a collection of disreputable guests. Seems like there's a trend there with Jesus, right? Like he seems to always be having dinner with those of questionable reputation. Unlikely as it seems, more than a few of them had become followers. Now, the religion scholars and Pharisees, they saw Jesus keeping this kind of company, and they lit into his disciples. What kind of example is this? Acting cozy with the riffraff. Jesus, overhearing, shot back. Who needs a doctor? The healthy or the sick? I'm here inviting the sin sick, not the spiritually fit. If you read a different translation, you'll see that Jesus says, "I have come to call not the righteous, but to care for the sinners." So the religious people, the people that were upholding the law, and the law was created to help them encounter God. It was not created to be punitive. I mean, the law was created, the Mosaic law was created for them to encounter the presence of God. So in the eyes of Jesus, if you were religious, if you were a religion scholar, if you were a Pharisee, if you were practicing Judaism, then you were seeking God. So you would have been known to be righteous. But we see that like the tax collectors and the riffraff, as we hear in Eugene Peterson's translation, The Message, they would not have been following the law and the code, and they would have had questionable actions, not just by society, but keeping them from encountering God. And so Jesus, he comes to care for them. He's spending time with them, and we've shared before that a meal is a very intimate experience, and so he's having dinner with those of questionable reputation. And I find it interesting that Mark tells us that by this time, many had come to follow him. So that means that this message that he keeps sharing is actually making a difference. Which is important for us, right? Because like if we are a part of a faith community, if we're part of a church, then we too are called to be like Jesus, and we're called to make a difference. Yet another reason why our core value is all means all. So Jesus is hanging out with folks and they criticize him. And they're like, they are not who you should be with. Like, you should be with the religious people, not the people that are doing stuff that's wrong. And so he says, who needs a doctor? Who needs to go to the hospital? The people who are well or the people who are sick? You know, there's a quote that goes along with this scripture. The church is not a museum for saints. It's a hospital for sinners. There's another translation of this quote. The church is not a club, or the church is not a country club for saints. It's a hospital for sinners. The first time that I ever heard this quote used, I was at a different church where there were a good number of people. In fact, I wasn't a member, but it was not uncommon for us on staff to be invited with some folks to go to dinner at the local country club. It was really nice and fancy. So I'm not knocking country clubs, okay? Like, I get it, and probably several of you belong to one, so please don't hear that. But what I'm trying to make the point of is the church is like, or could be like, a museum or a club or a country club. And that's not what we're called to be. We're called to be a hospital for people that are in need. So let's talk for just a second about like how the church is like a club or a museum. On the screen, you will see a picture of one of the most famous, renowned country clubs in the United States, if not the world. It is the Augusta National. It's where the Masters is held, and I was in Augusta recently, and I knew of Augusta because of the golf tournament. I didn't know anything really more about it. And then all of a sudden, like, I saw this sign that said Augusta National, and it had an arrow. And then I kept waiting to see the country club. Like, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that I was going to be driving right by where that golf tournament is held. That's so cool. And so I kept looking, and I kept looking, and I kept looking. So what you see, I mean, it's so beautiful, right? I mean, it's meticulously cared for. Now I want to show you a different image. So what you see is the country club, but what you won't see is, like, do you see all the greenery right here? Like the road that goes right by the country club is over here. It's like where the TV screen is. You cannot see into the beauty and see all the majesty and splendor of the Augusta National when you're just driving down the street. It is so closed off and so highly secure that you cannot get in. So think about how that would apply to the church. It's so secure and it's so closed off, you can't get in. Believe it or not, that's what a lot of churches become. And not intentionally, right? Like, none of us set out to be exclusive. But it just happens when you get a bunch of people together and they get to know each other, and it's so easy to turn inward and just start thinking about like us and who we are and what we like and what we don't like and what we need and what we don't need. And we forget to be open to all. If you take someone to a hospital, I mean, even if they don't have a bed open, like unfortunately right now is happening a lot because of the Delta variant and folks that have not received the vaccine. I mean, they're getting really sick and being taken to the hospital. And I heard a story just the other day of a young man who is in his last stages of life. He's in a study, and they're trying to combat his cancer, and he went to a hospital in Charlotte, and there were no beds. And he really, really needed urgent care. His blood sugar was over 500. And if you don't know anything about blood sugar, like that's way, way, way too high. And so they ended up sending him to Duke. So even a hospital that didn't have a bed for a young man found him a space. Hospitals don't turn people away, but churches do. Churches turn people away when maybe they don't dress right, maybe they don't act right, maybe they aren't married to the right person. Or maybe they are committing some kind of sinful act and you just disagree with the way that they're living. In the first church that I served, there were a couple of families that had young children with some disabilities and challenges. And it would not be uncommon that in the middle of the message, one of the young children would cry out very, very loudly. Now, I mean, truth, if you're sitting in a pretty quiet space and all of a sudden you hear a very, very loud scream, it's distracting. But that church, they got this scripture verse. They got that they were called to be a hospital for all people, for sinners, for all people, not a museum or not an exclusive club. And so you know what they did? They went and they began working with the local organization that cared for people with mental challenges and mental disabilities. They let their custodial staff, that contract expire. And so then they employed individuals from that institution, individuals that would not have the opportunity to find employment in other places, to come and be the cleaning crew for their church. There was one young man, he could not speak, but he could vacuum, and he loved to vacuum. He would vacuum you if you did not move out of his way. Those floors were spotless. And you know what? That church embraced them. And a couple of times a year, they would invite them. They were invited to worship all the time, but getting them there was a logistical challenge. But a couple of Sundays a year, they would highlight them in worship and have a special Sunday where the church would, as a whole, give them gratitude for coming to serve. That's an example of a church being a hospital for all people, not a museum or a club for saints. Did everyone like it? No. There were the comments that you could expect, right? Like, I can't worship. I can't pay attention to the sermon. They're distracting. And then, some would complain, well, if we had a professional cleaning crew, more things could be done quicker, etc. But the church as a whole, the leadership, they embraced that they were going to love all people. And I just am so grateful that that's the kind of church that West is. And the beautiful thing is we're not the only one around that's like that. I had coffee with a colleague early this week, and he's in a church in a small town northwest of Statesville. And he said that their church is known to be the crazy church. He said, Andrea, I'm just going to tell you, we're not really that crazy. We're just normal. And he said, but to this community, we're crazy because all means all. And we really mean it. We welcome all people. So what does that look like? It requires us to understand the meaning of the word sin. So I want to show you two of the predominant words that are used in Scripture to mean sin. You have kata, that's in the Hebrew text. It literally translates to miss. And then you have the Greek, and it's pronounced hamartia, and it literally means to miss the mark, as in an archery competition. And like if you miss the mark, you fail to receive the prize or the blessing. So let's talk about that for just a second. What is our mark? Because Jesus ate with the sinners. What did that mean? That meant the people that were failing to live in the mark. And the mark was to live in the path of God, to live immersed in love. So, what if like the little 100 space right there is absolute perfect love and this whole circle represents love? Missing the mark would be to like be living your life in such a way that you are not acting in love. And that's why, frankly, as a church and as a pretty significant part of our United Methodist denomination, and I do understand that there are people on all sides of the issue around sexual orientation and gender identity, but, it all boils down to love. And to miss the mark means to not be living in God and of God. And we understand that God is love. And so if we're missing the mark, we are not living as people of love. If you ask, had lunch a year ago with a young person that identified as non-gender. It was my first encounter with someone who preferred to be referred to by the pronoun they. It was different for me. I'm used to saying he or she, and I am 50, and apparently it is difficult to learn new patterns. But they explained to me the reason that they did not identify as a male or a female. They live a life of absolute kindness and absolute love. They shared with me how sometimes they mess up and they're judgmental or whatever, but truly they live a life of loving all people. If Jesus were with us right now and Jesus had lunch with they, I really feel like the same thing would happen that happened in this passage. He'd be like, who are y'all to question them? The church is a hospital for sinners, a hospital for people that are missing the mark, and the missing the mark is missing the mark of love. It is not a closed-off institution or organization for people that have already got it figured out. In fact, when the religious people kept thinking they had it figured out, he was so bold that he would say, maybe you need to judge not unless you want to be judged. He also said, maybe you should get like the 2x4 out of your own eye before you try to pick the splinter out of someone else's. So I wanted to show you an example this morning of why and how we have the core value, all means all. Because we do recognize, and I love it when people disagree with our core value and they bring the book of discipline. It's like our ethics as a denomination. It also has our theological stance and how we order as a church, like all the structure and the organization as a denomination. But it also has our stance on social justice issues. And if you read the book of discipline, you can find words in there right now that would lend itself to say that our core value of all means all and the way that we implement it is wrong. But there's also a lot of words in there that talk about how we as United Methodists believe that all people are people of God and all people are people of God's grace. And it's very, very clear. So we're called to live that out, right? Not just because we're United Methodists, but because we're called by God. So I asked Josh, I wanted him to hold the little dartboard for me this morning. And then I have some little dart balls. And I'm going to step back, and the camera is going to stay on Josh, even if I don't stay in the camera image. The camera is going to stay on Josh. I'm going to go over here, and I am going to try to hit the mark. Well, clearly, that's a little what I was worried about, but, we like things to be normal and live, so we don't practice these things, and I'm not an athlete, so even if I did practice, the odds of it, oh my goodness, are not working. All right, so I finally hit the mark. I had to come a little closer because I'm going to run out of balls, but I had to come a little closer to hit the mark. But guess what? So like now, if I'm staring at the camera and not looking at Josh at all, like I am going to clearly miss the mark even more. And I wasn't trying to, thank you, Josh. I was really trying to hit the mark when I wasn't looking at the camera because I wanted to make this point. We are called to live not as sinners, okay? So don't tell me that we're a place that just lets anything go and it's, just free willy and, we have no moral integrity and ethics, because that is not true. We believe that we are called to hit the mark. We believe that we are called not to sin. But the definition of sin is to miss the mark, and the mark is love. So everything we try to do and to teach, it comes back to that. It comes back to, are we living as a people of love? Are we loving people? And that's when we strongly encourage, if folks are not living in love, we try to encourage them to think about we try to encourage ourselves to think about, so what would living as a person of love really be like right now? And we encourage us to look within ourselves. Far too often, we believe that the church gets it wrong and ends up being like Augusta National, where you can drive by and not even really see in because you're not included, because you're different. When we spend too much time trying to look at everybody else and to see whether or not they are hitting the mark, instead of worrying about ourselves and our own hitting it. It needs to be about us hitting our mark. Andrea Smith needs to worry about, am I acting out of love and kindness at all times, or do I become self-focused and selfish? Do I become driven by my ego? Do I do things out of greed or pride or judgmentalism? That's the stuff I need to work on. I don't need to worry about what so-and-so is doing with their life. I just need to make sure that I am living in the pathway of love. And as your pastor, trying to help us all go down that path. Jesus very bluntly and boldly said, "Who needs a doctor, the sick or the well? I did not come to worry about the righteous. I came to care for the sick." Because if you're righteous, if you have that connection with God, then you get it. You get that God is love, and you're already on that path. I came to work with those who are not yet, and I came to show them that God is love. You will not, I hope, ever find us judging here at West. And it's why really all does mean all. My friend on Monday, when we met, and he was telling me that they were known as the crazy church in town, he said they were also known as the church who would let anybody in. And that wasn't necessarily a compliment. I told him I think that's the best compliment you could ever get, that we let anybody in. And when we let everyone in, we work together to always be a people of love. At West, we follow the Jesus model, and all means all, and all means love. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, thank you for giving us an example of what it means to love all people, and that it's not about those that have already got it figured out, those that fit in at Augusta National, which is by invitation only, by the way, but that it's about loving people that are hurting, loving people that need community, loving people that want to find a place to fit in and be loved. And that, God, you do forgive us when we miss the mark. And you keep nudging us and pulling us into you with your grace so that we may live a life that is marked by a pathway of love. Thank you, God, for being a God of all means all. Amen. May you receive this benediction before the closing song. I would love for you to draw on a piece of paper, like a little mark, and then think about all the things that you're not doing in your life, or that you are doing that you may need to stop, that are keeping you from being that person of love. And then I want you, if you went and found a pair of socks like I asked you to, I want you during this closing song, I want you to practice throwing your socks. I want you to find a spot on the wall or the TV or wherever, and I want you to keep trying to throw the socks. Probably you're a better shot than me, but keep trying to throw the socks. And once you can hit your mark, I want you to look away and try to keep throwing and see how much harder it is to hit the mark when you're looking around at everything else. As followers of Christ, we're not called to be looking at everybody else and judging them and their lives and how they don't have it all figured out. We're called to look at ourselves, and then we're called to see where this world needs love. That's what we're called to look around at. Go do those things during this closing song, and have a great week. Amen.
I'm not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. I am great, I am proof, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me, look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets hits my skin. We'll fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shame sink in. We are bursting through the barricades and reach above the sun. Yeah, and that's what we've become. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, gonna send blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am proof, I am who I'm meant to be. sharpest words wanna cut me down. I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am proof, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me, oh. This is me.
Hey kids, welcome back to Amped. We're learning all about wisdom. My name is Ollie the Owl, and remember last episode when we learned about the wisdom of having good friends and amped up art with Lindsay, and how we made Jolly Rancher juice with Chef Micah? That was so much fun. Today's episode is going to be pretty fun too. We're going to watch a really good story, do an experiment with Dr. Lulu, and play a fun minute to win it game. Let's go!
Okay, the star of our story today is King Solomon. Now, Solomon was the son of David, who was a very important king. Solomon had a front row seat to his father's reign and picked up a tip or two on what it meant to be a good king.
Tip number 1, always give away the full-size candy bars at Halloween. It's worth the extra price.
But Solomon didn't just get insight from watching his father. One night, God appeared to Solomon in a dream. Now, in the dream, the Lord said to Solomon, "Ask for anything you want me to give you."
Anything?
Solomon thought about what he would need to be a good ruler.
Lord, you've made me king, but I'm still very young. Give me a heart that understands. That way I can rule over your people. I can tell the difference between what is right and what is wrong.
What an incredible thing to ask for. Solomon could have asked for riches or power. He could have asked to be a foot taller or to live for 1,000 years. But instead, he asked for wisdom. The Lord was so pleased with Solomon's request, he promised to give him wisdom. And not only that, God told Solomon, "I will give you what you have not asked for. I will give you wealth and honor. As long as you live, no other king will be as great as you are."
Wow, this is great. Somebody pinch me, I must be dreaming. Ah!
Solomon realized he had been dreaming, but it was much more than a dream. His wisdom was quickly put to the test. He was approached by two women.
Oh, my king!
My king!
My king!
My king!
Hey, my
My
king! My king. This woman and I live in the same house, and she is insisting that this is hers.
It is mine. It looks just like me.
It does not.
Yes, it does.
Go
It's
by.
mine.
What are we arguing about?
An X Station Playbox 10!
What?
Oh.
Pause for 1 second. Okay, so in the Bible, the two women are arguing over which one of them was the mother of a newborn baby, not a video game console. But the story gets kind of intense, which isn't necessarily the tone of the So-and-So Show players. So,
An X Station Playbox 10.
Solomon was in a jam. How could he possibly know who the baby belonged to? The stakes were sky high. So Solomon took a pretty wild shot.
Bring me a sword.
What are you doing?
I'm going to cut the X Station Playbox 10 in half. It's the only fair way to settle this. That way, you both have half.
Sounds good to me. Half is better than none.
Wait! If you cut it in half, it won't work.
I know, but I don't know what you want me to do.
Your Majesty, wait. Give her the X Station Playbox 10. If you cut it in half, it'll be destroyed and no one will get to enjoy the mix of next-gen graphics and high ultra processing power. She will have stolen it from me, but I care more about the X Station Playbox 10's happiness than I do mine.
Right. It belongs to her.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's not fair at all. No.
I did right by that baby. Yep. X Station Playbox 10. What's next?
All right, let's think about how wild Solomon's suggestion was. He said to cut a baby in half. That's nuts. But he would have never hurt the child. It was a test. Solomon was thoughtful about the problem, and he was kind to the real mother who was in a bit of a bind, and he trusted God for wisdom. Those are the qualities you need as a follower of Jesus. You'll have hard decisions too, but when you listen to God and the wisdom of the people he puts in your life, more often than not, you'll make a good choice. I'll see you next time.
Here's Dr. Lulu.
What, Einstein? I'm just a minute. What, Aunt? Oh, the kids are here. The kids are here. Hi, guys. I'm sorry. Einstein and I have been getting ready for you today, and we've got something to teach you about science. Now, before you got here, my helper Einstein mixed up some water and food coloring in these containers, and that's what you can do at home. Take some water, pour it in a container, and then drop some food coloring in and stir it. The next step is to take some baby oil and put it in a glass container. And it doesn't have to be a container like this. You can use a bowl or anything that you happen to have at home. Next, take a straw, dip it into your colored water, put your thumb on top and pull it out. See the colored water's here? It acts just like a dropper. Then you drop little drops of your water into the baby oil. See how cool it is? Look at the bottom. Look at all our colors. So the reason this happens, guys, is that oil is denser than water, so it doesn't dissolve in water. And so you can get all kind of cool shapes. You can use all kind of colors. You can do it for a long time. Come look at this. Look, it looks like gemstones. And guess what, kids? You can do all kind of stuff with this. Check this out. They wobble. Okay, so your wisdom point for today is, remember, oil and water don't mix. That's why you can do tons of cool science experiments with them. Einstein and I will see you next time. And there's more wisdom coming up.
You have a minute to win it, AM style.
Let's see how many characters you can guess correctly in 1 minute. Let's play with the whole family. Elsa! SpongeBob and Patrick. Moana. Spider-Man. Lightning McQueen. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mandalorian. Paw Patrol. Mickey Mouse, Peppa Pig, Doc McStuffins, Steven Universe.
Phew! That episode was so much fun. How did you guys do at the guessing game? How about the science experiment? And what was your favorite part of the story? Thanks for joining me for learning about wisdom this month. We'll see you next time. Bye!
Follow us on Instagram at Amped Online to stay up to date on the latest news, air dates, and extra content. Invite a friend by having them text AMPED to 704-343-8955 to sign up for their free AMP subscription box.